Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Friday, July 25th, 2025. Today is day 658. In an exclusive from Reuters, U.S. aid analysis found that there is no evidence of massive Hamas theft relating to aid in Gaza. The State Department disputed findings saying that Hamas was stealing aid, and it cites video evidence. So the State Department now has disputed these findings, citing video evidence of Hamas looting. Israel claims that Hamas diverts aid. You'll recall during the Biden administration, back when Samantha Power was the head of USAID, she said that Hamas was not diverting aid. But Israel claims that they are, based on its intelligence reports. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation accuses Hamas of theft, and the UN rejects Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's militarized model. So an internal U.S. government analysis, this is the U.S. government found there's no evidence of the systematic theft of aid by Hamas. So this challenges the main rationale that Israel and the U.S. give for backing the armed provision of aid through the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The analysis, which had not previously been reported, was conducted by a bureau within the U.S. Agency for International Development. It was completed in June. It examined 156 different incidents of theft or loss of U.S.-funded supplies between October 2023 and May of 2025. It found no reports that alleged Hamas benefited from U.S.-funded supplies, according to a slide presentation of the findings that Reuters saw. A State Department spokesperson disputed the findings, saying there is video evidence, but they provided no such videos. And the spokesperson also accused traditional humanitarian groups of covering up aid corruption. Meanwhile, over 800 trucks were waiting to be collected by agencies in Gaza. Israel said today they added that 70 trucks were unloaded at an aid crossing yesterday, and over 150 were collected by the UN and aid organizations on the Gazan side. A further 10 people have died from malnutrition just in the last 24 hours. And OSHA warned yesterday that the hunger crisis in Gaza has never been so dire. All too often, civilians approach UN trucks and they are shot at. People are starving and food is brought to them behind guns. And when they seek to get that food, they're killed. That's what's happening. More than 1,000 people, I'll give more statistics about the numbers tomorrow, related to the distribution at Gaza Humanitarian Foundation sites have been killed. Last week's strike on the Gaza Holy Family Catholic Church killed 3 people and injured 9 others, was, quote, due to an unintentional deviation of munitions. Isn't that just a nice and neat explanation? It falls short of mentioning the fatalities. The IDF acknowledged that the strike caused damage to the church and injured several Gazan civilians. The deadly strike drew international condemnation, including His Holiness Pope Leo XIV, calling for an end to the barbarity of war. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese today urged Israel to immediately meet its international law obligations by allowing food into Gaza. People are starving. Children are starving. That the reality in the territory has gone beyond the world's worst fears, and Israel's denial of aid, the killing of civilians, including children, seeking access to water and food, cannot be defended nor ignored. BBC, Agence France Presse, Associated Press, and Reuters are desperately concerned for their journalists in Gaza who are increasingly unable to feed themselves and their families. They put out a joint statement yesterday, once again, urging Israel to allow journalists in and out of Gaza. Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières charities said today that it is witnessing catastrophic levels of malnutrition in Gaza. 25% of children screened and pregnant women screened by the MSF clinics are suffering from malnutrition. What's happening in Gaza is the deliberate starvation of a people that's being manufactured by the authorities in Israel. Separately, that's MSF saying that. I don't disagree. Separately, the UN Aid Agency for Palestinians, UNRWA, said that 20% of children in Gaza are malnourished, and that number increases every day. Israel is reviewing a revised response from the Hamas related to a ceasefire hostage release proposal. Netanyahu's office reported that. Hamas confirmed it provided a new proposal after a previous version that was submitted on Tuesday was rejected by mediators without even being passed to Israel. Middle East Eye reported an exclusive saying that the Egypt presidency forced Al-Azhar is the Islamic seminary, to delete a statement that was condemning Israel's starvation of Gaza. Sources close to Al-Azhar and the presidency in Egypt confirmed that a statement by Ahmed Al-Tayeb was removed because it denounced the state's complicity in Israel's fully fledged genocide. The Cairo-based Al-Azhar said Wednesday of this week that it deleted a strongly worded statement over the starvation of Palestinians in Gaza, citing its potential impact on ceasefire negotiations. In a statement, the institution said it took the initiative to withdraw the statement with courage and responsibility before God when it realized that this statement could impact the ongoing negotiations regarding a humanitarian truce in Gaza to save innocent lives. Al-Azhar has prioritized the interests of preventing the daily bloodshed in Gaza, hoping that the negotiations would lead to an immediate halt to bloodshed to provide the most basic necessities of life, of which oppressed Palestinian people have been deprived. You'll recall, perhaps, that Churches for Middle East Peace has had meetings with the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar over the past year, and that we're in alignment on allowing in full access to humanitarian assistance and aid into Gaza. Iran will host a delegation from the UN Atomic Agency program in a few weeks. This is marking the first sign from Tehran that it might be willing to resume talks with international inspectors. This is following the Israeli and U.S. strikes against nuclear facilities last month. Iran said that they're open to resuming negotiations with the U.S. the sooner the better, but they want assurance that the talks are not going to be used as a pretext for further military action. Related to Syria, senior Israeli and Syrian ministers yesterday met in Paris. They had a four-hour-long discussion on de-escalating tensions brokered by the U.S. Saudi Arabia yesterday announced it will invest $6.4 billion into Syria, which is a sign of the relationships increasing between Saudi Arabia and Syria. A series of fires and explosions at military bases and weapons storage sites in Syria this month raised concerns about whether the caches of unexploded ordnances from the civil war in Syria that are located close to civilian areas, there's a question of whether or not those have been properly secured. An explosion at a military base in northwestern Syria yesterday killed at least 6 people and injured 100 more. President Macron of France announced on social media today that France will recognize Palestine as a state. This might have been announced yesterday, but in the last 24 hours. He will officially declare this as the UN General Assembly in September. The Palestinian Authority president's deputy, Hussein al-Sheikh, responded to the statement saying this position reflects France's commitment to international law and its support for Palestinian people's right to self-determination and the establishment of an independent state. The U.S. is recalling its negotiating team from Doha. That's what Steve Witkoff said. That's the latest response, saying that the latest response from Hamas clearly shows a lack of desire to reach a ceasefire. The U.S. will now consider alternative options to bring hostages home to try to create a more stable environment for the people of Gaza. Israel also recalled its negotiating team to put pressure on Hamas, according to an Israeli source, adding that the talks did not collapse. The U.S. has said they strongly reject France's plan to recognize a Palestinian state. Marco Rubio said that. He said France's feckless decision only serves Hamas's propaganda. Oh my. The U.S. will not attend the upcoming UN conference that I've been talking about that Saudi Arabia and France is convening next week at the United Nations. And a U.S. Agency for International Development assessment, I talked about this in the beginning, about how there is no evidence of systematic theft of U.S.-funded humanitarian supplies by Hamas. This analysis challenges the main rationale that Israel and the U.S. have used to back the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. President Trump signaled today that after the breakdown in negotiations in terms of a peace agreement, that he believes Netanyahu should escalate the war to, quote, get rid of Hamas. I just want to say, dear Mr. President Trump, have you not heard that Hamas is an ideology and that even the Israeli security establishment have said that Hamas cannot be eradicated? Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth signal messages about U.S. military strikes in Yemen derived from a classified email. This is according to sources who reported to the Washington Post. The Pentagon's independent watchdog has received evidence of such. The email containing the strike plans had been shared with a dozen defense officials and was labeled secret I don't know what that stands for. NOFURN. Sources say the secret designation indicated that its information was considered so sensitive that unauthorized release could jeopardize national security. NOFORN, that's a designation that signifies the information was not to be shared with foreign nationals. Oh, it's no foreign, so no foreign nationals, including U.S. allies. The revelation contradicts the Trump administration's long-standing claims that no classified information was released during those unclassified group chats. Finally, the recent UK conference on the decolonizing of Palestine just ended, where people from all over the world, particularly the global south, were in attendance. Churches for Middle East Peace was there as well. And I wanted to close with a poem that I found very beautiful from Thandi Gamedzi. She's South African. And this is what she wrote. It's clear that God is getting tired. They worked so hard to keep that child alive under the rubble for 6 days until she was rescued. But then they couldn't save her from that 2,000-pound bomb. It's clear that God is getting tired. They spent so much energy keeping a mother and her twins healthy through an entire pregnancy and birth amidst genocide. But as they took a breather, thinking that the hard work was over, all three were killed in an airstrike. It's clear that God is getting tired. They worked around the clock, keeping a man who had lost 3 limbs alive, and it seemed that he was out of the woods when the hospital was bombed and the building collapsed on top of him. It's clear that God is getting tired. The prayers are not even reaching them anymore. There are just so many that they have simply given up. Like when you reach a certain level in Tetris and the blocks start just coming so fast, and for a time you frantically move around the pieces in an attempt to maintain a semblance of control, until at some point you just put up your hands in defeat, recognizing that the end is inevitable and there's nothing more you can do. It is clear that God is getting tired, that God is tired, that God has been tired for 20 horrifying months, for 76 horrifying years. God is tired and defeated, and they've decided that it's time to vacate their home in the sky and to move down into a tent in Gaza. God is there now, ready to die alongside their people in Israel's next airstrike. Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy. Amen.